Now, last panel of the day, I'm going to invite three experts to the stage to join me to talk about a marketing topic, the rise of real attribution in PC and console gaming. Now, if you saw at the start of the track, Adam from AppsFlyer gave us a little introduction to that and about attribution and performance marketing in PC. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I should just a little reminder, there were some AppsFlyer socks on every chair, but I think maybe if you've come late, you might have lost those. I'm sure there's some more around the place if you want them. So why don't we invite to the stage my panelists, and then we'll get going. I'd like to welcome Adam Smart from AppsFlyer, Anna Salomaa from Resistance Games, and Gus Viegas from Lessmore. So please come on up, and we'll start talking. So yeah, please take a seat. Now, my name's Dave Bradley. I'm going to be your moderator for this panel. Those of you who've been with us this morning will have seen me comparing the stage as well, and I'm from Pocket Gamer. But also, we publish PC Games Insider, which not everyone remembers. So as well as Pocket Gamer, we publish a number of sites, also PC and console. So we're going to talk about this. So the purpose of this conversation really is, for decades, PC and console gaming, the promotion of games has been about a brand-based approach to marketing. Whereas those of us who work in mobile are very familiar with the data-driven performance marketing, attribution nature of mobile marketing. And now we find that a lot of PC and console, but let's say PC publishers are having to turn to performance marketing in order to get users. So we're going to talk about these changes, about what that means, define some of these terms, and hear from our experts from across the field of mobile and PC and console gaming about what marketers should be doing now to promote their games and how this different approach works. So first of all, I'll go down this way. I'll start with Gus, and I'll ask my panelists to introduce themselves and their business in a few words. So go ahead.
Hey, cheers. So hey, I'm Gus. I'm head of growth at Lessmore. I've been doing mobile game marketing for the last 10 years, specifically games. Been launching in all the different kind of genres within mobile. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much,
Cheers.
Gus. Thank you. And Anna.
Yeah, hello. My name is Anna Salomaa. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Resistance Games, and we make PC strategy games. So quite different from mobile, but I think things are also quite the same. So happy to be here and discuss this.
That's perfect. We'll dive into that. And then Adam, yes, some people here have seen you already, but please, reintroduce yourself. For those
sorry about that. So I'm Adam. I'm director of product gaming over at AppsFlyer. And it's actually quite cool because we can help both of you guys being able to run performance marketing on PC and console and on mobile.
Great. Well, that's a perfect introduction. So I'll tell you what. Let me start here. Let's do some definitions. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about here. Because the topic here is about the rise of real attribution, and I've thrown in some terms there about performance marketing. But what do these mean? So I'm going to start with Gus there. Do you want to lead us in a conversation? Look, what is attribution? For those maybe who are coming to this fresh.
Mm-hmm. So the biggest difference, I think, in the mentality between mobile gaming marketing and PC console marketing has been that approach of PC going more for brand marketing and mobile going more for performance marketing. Right. So we should define what performance marketing is. Mm-hmm. So it's all about measurability in one word. And in more words, it's basically, in normal marketing, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to create this piece of content, I'm going to place it in this location, and based on the fact that I made this messaging in this certain way, certain people will come because I've orchestrated the brand to be like that.
Right.
In mobile, we kind of skip ahead. We have one advantage, which is we're not trying to attract necessarily a specific audience. We know the audience. We're purchasing the audience already in advance. We actually measure the audience even before we focus on getting them into our game, which means if you don't need to care so much about will I put this in the right location with the right messaging at the right time, you're just focusing on, okay, did it work? Did it not work? What's the exact percentage of how well it worked, the return on your investment? So we, as performance marketeers in mobile, we're more like economists rather than marketeers. We're just focusing on the numbers day to day and not so much on the psychology of it all.
Right, that's interesting. There's that old quote, isn't there, back from before the internet, because I used to work in magazine publishing many years ago, where they say half of all magazine advertising doesn't work. If only I knew which half. That's the question, and that's the advantage that data does for us today. Anna, yeah, what's your take on this? How do you define the challenge of performance marketing and attribution as coming from a PC side of things? Yeah, what's your take?
Yeah, I think, and I'm from an indie company, so of course resources are limited. So it's hugely important for us to put our effort to exactly the right place and kind of seeing the conversion and the effect. That's super like vital for us, because like just throwing things on the air doesn't work at all.
Right.
And also when we make strategy games, we have quite specific audience. We know the audience exactly how they are and what would they like to see and do. But also, we really need to cater everything to them and really be spot on, choose the right platforms, right ways to talk to them, because it's quite a kind of narrow thing. So throwing things out once again doesn't really work.
No,
because we need to find the exact right people.
Exactly, and not only is it inefficient, but also it's expensive, and that's another thing that people are finding. Particularly if you're an indie company, you can't afford to just throw money at a problem.
No.
So yeah, Adam, I want to dive in here. You've spoken a little about this earlier, but talk us through, as we've been discussing, attribution, performance marketing. What's your understanding of these terms? And
I think the biggest thing it provides is forecasting. Like, if you know your return on ad spend or your estimated return on ad spend, you're able to then forecast what you can do, what your monthly ad spend can be, how you can plan what users you're going to be getting through, to looking at the full revenue that the game's going to produce over the period of time. And I think that's the difference between console and PC marketing as it stands and mobile marketing and the way the games are built. It fundamentally changes how you build a game when you know the conversion revenue that you're going to get from that title. Whereas from the PC and console side, historically, there's been no extra revenue that can be generated because it's effectively lifetime value up front.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, am I sitting on the broad thing? Maybe it's me. So great. So then that's very important. That wasn't one of the things you spoke about in your talk, which was PC games have traditionally been sold a different way. You do all that promotion, then you buy a PC game, and you've got the thing, and that's you've got your thing. Whereas mobile, with all the data, is able to carry on having this lifetime value of its users, and you're doing that. So let's ask some of these questions. Like, we've obviously chosen this topic to discuss here. AppsFlyer, you're moving into the PC space. What are the trends here? Why is this something that we're talking about now? Why has it come about that we're having this conversation about PC? Couldn't things just have happily carried on as they were, indefinitely with PC being there? I don't know, Gus, do you want to take us away there? What is the trend that means we should be having this conversation?
Ooh, there's a lot of spicy topics at the moment. I think the one that's very pressing on this week in particular is Google Android Privacy Sandbox.
Okay.
I believe that's a core component of a leveling of the playing field between mobile and PC.
Interesting.
For those not aware, it's you used to rely a lot on cookies on PC and not even console, but in PC, and now Google, for lack of a better term, and apologies, my friends at Google, they kind of like create a spyware, on most browsers for most people, but this for us on the gaming space is actually quite great. So the Android Privacy Sandbox, what you can do is target groups of people with certain interests. So this unlocks a lot of potential for PC to advertise more targeted with more knowledge, previous knowledge on their users. And then the users also, the benefit for them is then they get more targeted content. We get to find the strategy gamers up in advance. So that in and of itself is already a game changer and leveling of the playing field. But I could go on and on.
Well, I'm sure some of these we'll come back to. I'm going to come to Adam next, and then I'll come to you, Anna, because I know that you're on the front line of making games. So, Adam, what is the trend? Why now? AppsFlyer here talking about this conversation. What's changed that means you need to be thinking about this?
So I think, it's not today. This hasn't literally just started today. We've been building the platform for the past couple of years, so we've predicted that everything is moving in this direction.
Right.
And I think some of those indicators are exactly as Gus said. You've got privacy, which is, with the changes that Apple have made and Google are in the process of making, you've got people questioning, we have potential impact to our business, and do we want all our eggs in one basket, effectively?
Right.
So now I think there's a lot of conversation about how we can look at different platforms, where else we can operate. And, I've seen lots of talk about Roku and sort of streaming games and that sort of stuff. And, Netflix is doing some amazing things with hardware coming out soon and it being like an Apple arcade of so to speak.
Yeah.
Obviously not Apple. But.
I know what you mean. That's a subscription arcade thing.
But I think fundamentally, games companies have an extreme urge for growth. And being able to move on to a new platform, especially for mobile companies who they have a certain model that they need to operate by, being able to fulfill that on other platforms is almost impossible, or it has been almost impossible. So I think it's a combination of things that have led up to this moment.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, and Anna, like I said, you're on the front line, so you're making and publishing games, you're developing and publishing games. I mean, what's your sense of how things are moving, your sense of the trend in this direction and as it comes to promoting games?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Sure.
I try to start somewhere. I think that a lot of things are moving at the moment. We have more and more kind of like variance between different kind of segments of gamers. We need to be more and more able to cater to them. Like, for example, for age, we have older and older gamers because things are moving forward. So I think that is something that we really need to ramp up our marketing to really know who we are talking to and how. And of course, Steam is very important for us. The platform pretty much kind of dictates that. What are we going to do? Because that's how we reach the gamers. That's our platform. So whatever happens with Steam, that also affects us. Now with the Steam Early Access.
Can I just ask you a question? Yeah. How have you found discoverability on Steam over time? Has that changed for you? Like,
it's harder.
Because I see more and more people developing for Steam. So I'm presuming, like Apple, it's going to get more saturated over time.
Yes, absolutely.
Discovery crisis,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've been hearing from mobile companies that maybe we could branch to PC, maybe it's easier there. And I'm like, no. that ship has sailed, because that's something we discussed when we formed the company 5 years ago, that it isn't that saturated. But no, it's just getting more and more saturated, harder and harder to kind of get yourself out there. And of course, the big players get way more visibility.
Yeah.
So, it's very, very difficult.
No, absolutely. And this isn't the topic of this panel, but we should also at some point come back to the conversation about Epic getting involved and offering Zero, their things, well. which is interesting. So there's the discovery crisis, more and more games, absolutely. And let's talk a little bit then. I'm going to come back to Gus here. As we've said, mobile gaming's been ahead in how it leverages performance marketing for some time. It's been for as long as I've been involved in this industry. In mobile, I've been in PC for a lot longer, but mobile for sort of 7 or 8 years, always about data. This is always about this. So if you had to boil it down, and again, huge topic, what are the first lessons that PC companies like Anna's have to learn from marketing? If you're here to learn from people who already dealt with this in mobile, what do they have to learn?
So I think it's about mentality, honestly. I think that when you're in PC, you think trailer first. Oh God, we have to fill the wish lists even before we release
Steam
the game on the Steam. And for us on mobile, we're highly demanding of data. We don't do anything if it's not measurable. If it isn't, typically leads into disaster because we're not experts in that field like the PC game market is. So I would argue nowadays there's a lot of potential to use that mentality combined with the current threats of the PC market. So let's give the wish list an example. Let's imagine that you need to start off minimum like 5,000, 10,000 wish lists. How do you do it? That could be an amazing way for performance marketers to come in and say, unless I have perfect visibility of how each of my ad spend is going into each of those wish lists,
right.
Why am I even spending? So it's about that mentality of demanding the data up front and not just thinking, oh, we'll release the game, really cool trailer, and they'll come.
Right. If you build it, they will come. It's not the way forward. Can you, before I move on to Anna, that exact pathway that maybe we're used to seeing in mobile, in PC, can you trace that line from, we did some promotion, someone put it on their wish list?
Unfortunately, I'm not the
Right,
expert here.
Is that, no, okay.
Not yet.
Not yet, not yet.
There's
Okay.
some obfuscation involved. But this is where I think another factor that's been growing over the last few years, since 2020, when Apple introduced the privacy measures, starts coming back in, which is mobile marketeers. In the last few years, we've been struggling because we've had to adapt completely to this lack of visibility. And so, for the last few years, we've been developing methods to go back to that. So again, mentality. We assume we want that data, so we're going backwards. We know we can get there. We don't know how, but we know we can get there. So we're going to be hungry developing media mix modeling, like as a probabilistic attribution and so forth. So I think PC, if people are listening and wanting a method, is just be demanding on how can you measure, and look at your mobile games partners, because they're currently struggling in the same exact way, at least on iOS, I would argue.
That's interesting. And in fact, if the media mix marketing, the MMM, there is a talk about that later on, I think, so that's worth connecting with. And that's interesting. Also, to your point, I also see after IDFA, with mobile marketing getting harder, my perception is that people are quite leaning into things like brands a lot more than like people are used to on PC. So so Anna, again, my same question but flipped around. You're here as a PC developer. What do you see your mobile pals doing that you really need to learn?
Well, what I really am impressed by is the exact data-driven, because kind of the attitude that we show the game, and if it's good, people will come. So I really love that dedication for data. I'm also kind of envious that you get so much data, because this kind of, we don't know. You wishlisted. I can of course somehow predict that maybe this was the one that sparked it, but I don't have that data trail. I don't really know. So I wish we also had that kind of visibility, and we could start really tweaking things. So that is something I really appreciate. And also kind of how are we going to tailor-made everything to appeal to the target audience?
Of course.
Great. Adam, I'm going to bring that question to you. And I obviously, you've got partners in this space, and I don't want you to give anything away that you shouldn't. But what I'd like to do is that question about what do PC developers need to learn from, what are the lessons they need to learn, but also, are there examples you can talk about? Like, who's doing this really well? Obviously, your own business, but where are the good campaigns? Where are the examples of people we should be looking to?
Well, I mean, to start off with it, I think they're two different things at the moment. I think PC and console has been historically brand, as we've been saying. It's been, it's almost like it's back where mobile was 7 years ago, something like that, where everybody's trying to find their feet. And it's not just a case of sort of saying, like, these mobile guys are doing a really good job, they've got data, they've got this, that, and the other. There's a lot of other factors which enable the mobile marketing side, so networks being able to target people who enjoy specific types of genres of games, that type of thing. And that takes time to build up their databases of users, to know who resonates with certain types of games. So that hasn't been done on the PC and console side yet. So these learnings have to come into play. The industry has to adapt in order for CPIs to start coming down and making performance marketing on mobile a reality. At the moment, it's something that would be amazing to put out there, but it needs the industry to adapt to it and to actually start utilizing it in order for it to become more commonplace.
Right, interesting. I will come back to you in a second, because I want to talk about some of the technologies and the stuff that AppsFlyer does will be in that. But seems like a good moment to talk to Anna about your recent launch. So you've recently launched a game. How did that go, and how did you promote that? As a use case example for everyone, tell us about your launch and what you did.
So we launched in early access, which of course changes things a little bit. But early access has changed also a lot. So people are expecting quite polished game already on that stage. But yeah, it definitely affected it. We also have a publisher partner, and that is something that kind of my piece of advice: and find yourself a good
Find a publisher.
yeah, find a publisher, find a really good collaborator, someone who can really help you with the marketing, because the effort is huge, and we want to focus on the development, and still, of course, we need to be there as well, and answering the questions and building the community. And that was one of the main points, that we want to have a really kind of a lively discussion on Discord. Discord is super important for us. Our players are really dedicated, they are quite vocal, they want to talk to the developers. So building the community was absolutely the #1 thing, and kind of easier said than done. And it requires a lot of kind of our time and dedication as well, that we have to be there all the time, talking to the gamers, asking, like answering their questions. That is like the key point, that we get that going.
That's interesting. Building the community, absolutely, I hear that a lot. Well, not only in terms of what that does to bring in new users, but retention's so important as well, isn't it? Which is perhaps a topic for a different panel, but keeping your users once you've got them is a whole other challenge. Yeah. That's really interesting. Well, let's talk about where we are now, emerging tools and technologies that are particularly important in this space. And actually, maybe this is a good opportunity to talk to Adam again. Like, the work you've been building over the last couple of years to bring AppsFlyer, who are known from mobile to PC. Tell us a little bit about the technology and what it is that you're doing there and what else you see.
Yeah, I mean, it's the attribution process.
Right.
And, that's what we've had years of working out for the mobile side of the business. And now we're applying a lot of that logic to the PC and console side. There's problems with that, like everything. I mean, in trying to perform that attribution, you're looking at things like IP address in order to match on and that sort of stuff, which has been something that's been available in the past for mobile. Obviously, through the privacy side of stuff, that's been taken away. But I think there's sort of pluses and minuses from doing the attribution in that way. None of the main platforms are integrating yet, and we feel that over a period of time, once more of the studios get involved, there will be a shift from some of the manufacturers in terms of actually starting integration or providing APIs and that kind of thing.
Right.
A lot like happened with mobile. We're talking mobile 7 years ago, and that's taken time to build up those integrations and that sort of stuff. I think in the way that it is being done, though, there's some really interesting parts that we are able to offer, whereby if somebody is watching connected TV, let's say, then they're sat in their living room, they're watching Netflix with ads on Apple TV or whatever it may be. They're able to see the ad come on the TV. They're watching a movie, so they don't want to do anything with it now. But in an hour later, they go and turn on their PC and they install your game, obviously. Yeah. That would then be attributed to the ad that they saw on the TV, because it's IP-based and it's household IP-based. So there are pluses and minuses by doing it this way, but at the moment, it's the only way that it's possible. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, compared to mobile, for instance, where there was that whole ad ecosystem. I could be playing a hyper-casual game, see an ad, click on it, and immediately I'm playing that game.
Yes.
And that line is drawn so clearly, which is harder when.
But then there are ways of doing that through. It depends. And this is where it almost needs to be thought out more than mobile, because there's lots of parts that don't necessarily connect at the moment.
Right.
So you have like mobile apps for a lot of the large platforms now, like Steam and PlayStation and Xbox and that sort of stuff, where you can send users to go to purchase the game from there.
Yeah.
But there's no telling whether somebody who clicks on an ad is then going to go through and purchase on mobile, or an hour later they're going to turn on their PlayStation and purchase the game through PlayStation. So being able to tie all that together is very, very useful.
Right, that's the challenge, absolutely. You know what, I'm going to skip ahead, because one of the topics about this, and I come to Anna first and see what everyone else says. You mentioned the community, absolutely vital. But what role, with all this performance marketing and the reliance on performance marketing and the shift towards that for PC as well, what role does sort of traditional streamers, influencers, brand building. What kind of role do they have in this future where we're looking at all this data? I mean, presumably still a huge place, but
Yes.
do you want to talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. I think they are absolutely vital, and especially on our field, when it's quite niche. Strategy games, it's a huge global niche, but still, choosing the right influencers, right streamers, it's so crucial. Of course, if we had all the money in the world, we could just put everyone played. But even a really kind of a relatively small audience with the right streamer can be the thing that tips it over. And also people can even get a little bit like miffed if you have your game just thrown out there. Like, you don't know us. You don't have your game with the right streamer, the right person we look up to.
Yeah,
so we really have to also that way to tell our players that we understand you. We know
exactly.
who you
People
want
wonder
to listen
why
to.
it is that their favorite strategy streamer isn't playing your game,
Yeah,
so you have to identify them.
Yeah.
For sure. No, that's interesting. And of course, the influencer marketing is a whole other art in itself. I mean, I won't come to Gus because I know your space is the performance marketing, but brand and IP. I don't know, Adam. Do you want to speak to this as well? I mean, what is the future of organic reach? How does that work?
It's going to stay. I mean, like, there's no getting away from brand advertising. In fact, I think the mobile world and the PC and console world are actually coming sort of closer and closer together in terms of the privacy stuff that's come in through mobile, and almost forcing, to a certain extent, more brand advertising to come through.
Yeah.
So I do think there's more of an overlap there than there has been. That's for sure.
I have done influencer marketing.
Yeah, of course. Well, absolutely. And even on mobile, I was the other day talking to somebody who was about Marvel Snap, and that's a mobile game, also on Steam incidentally, so we can come talk about cross-play.
Just been released,
Yeah, just been released, exactly. And of course, so they have all the data, and it's a very finely honed app. But so much of the success of that game is about the brand and about the mobile streamers playing it. There's all that as well. In fact, let's talk about. I think you mentioned this earlier on. We brought up IDFA a few times. There's the stuff about the sandbox. How do we balance the need for attribution and personalized marketing and data with concerns over user privacy? In this era of real attribution, how do we do that? Because we've seen the effect that the step away from IDFA had on mobile marketing, but also there just seems like there's a general move towards privacy and about those conversations are happening more often. I mean, how do we balance these things? Who wants to leap it on that? I don't know. Gus, dive in there. Yeah, what's the?
So I think that it's a lot about aggregation of groups of users, right? So. From the beginning, so we're talking about pre-GDPR times, you had access to data in a way that was demonical. It was
scary.
Frightening.
It was ridiculous. There's some stories there. But we never needed that. I mean, sure, maybe previous purchases on previous games, some of these kind of data points, sure, they were useful. But these platform holders, so not necessarily AppsFlyer necessarily, but Google, Apple, Steam, Epic, etc., they can anonymize these groups of data for us and still give us what we need as marketeers, which is, hey, we want purchasers of previous games. We don't need to know where they were, how they were, what were the exact amounts, but give me this group and I will target. And then the user is happy because their personal information is not being shared. It's just their type of users being shared. And I think that's where everyone is gravitating towards, both in mobile and PC. And I think that's the balance.
That's good. And in fact, anecdotally, users don't mind that if they're being, if they're seeing games that are the kind of games that they buy. It's when they feel that
I was going to say, ironically, I've heard complaints of people getting non-contextual ads. And it's changed because they haven't accepted the new terms and conditions and stuff, and now they're getting ads for Pampers when they don't have children.
It's funny to say that. No, exactly. I am enraged when I have to watch something and advertise something to me that I'm never going to play.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to be a strategy gamer and suddenly you have their game right in your feed on Facebook or whatever? It's exactly what you want.
So we walk in that tightrope between having the relevance and the convenience of it against being afraid that my data is being misused.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, on that topic, I mean, that balance, sorry, Adam, I sort of stole your thunder there by bringing that topic up. But yeah, is that your point on that? How do you do that balance?
I mean, look, it's happening. It's embracing it, it's working with it and not fighting against it, because there's no point in fighting against it.
Yeah.
You know, it's changes that both government and platforms for devices are bringing in to protect the general public, which nobody can argue against. That makes complete sense. Me as a consumer, I'm completely behind that. I don't want people to know all of my personal information. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to find ways of being able to continue advertising. Yeah. So people like Gus still have a job in order to be able to do user acquisition. Hate to see you unemployed. But it's a fundamental thing that we have to find ways of being able to work with the system. Right. Like bringing in more contextual ads instead of focusing on user level, trying to do more things that are focused around likes, things that you know that resonate with your fan base of your game, advertising more in those kind of places. I'm sure you're laughing because it's almost impossible to do, but
but absolutely.
Yeah, I'm laughing because this is a topic in the industry. Usually, is like the death of the UA manager, but I've been hearing this for my entire career. So.
Right. And of course, Anna, you need to be able to sell your game to people who are receptive to to playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is great that we get that kind of targeting. But one thing, of course, is that as developers, we have to be on top of all of these issues, and it's quite a race to kind of always remember that what can we do, what kind of data we can collect, what kind of permits or like questions we have to ask. It's quite a thing to stay top on that.
Everyone has to stay on top of it, absolutely. And the introduction of things like what AI means to all of this, as I think they're talking about on another stage, there's a whole other level of complexity. Do you know, we've got a few minutes left. I've got a couple more questions, but you know what? Our experts are here. Does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask about marketing, performance marketing, attribution? I can't quite see anyone, but if there's any hands in the audience, please do say. Well, I'll carry on. But if you do want to ask any questions, throw your hands up, and we'll try and get a mic to you before we break for lunch. So. Let's do some specific advice. What advice would you give to, let's say, someone in the audience who's working on a game right now? We know that about 70% of attendees here are game makers. So let's say we've got some game makers in the audience. They're working on a game, working on a PC game. What advice are you going to give them? Well, if you had to boil it down to one piece of advice, what do they need to know?
So I believe that we think of games as this enjoyable experience, this fun experience, and because it's fun, they will come. But there's more to it. So we could talk about AI, but I would actually just talk about the networks themselves or the MMPs of the world. They collect data within the game, right? So you have to think about it how the game's data then connects and feeds to these algorithms within the networks. And that interaction, because it's not just about the game being fun and the user liking the game. That's what will cause retention, what will cause them to stay playing the game. But what causes them to even see it in front of them.
Right.
Because the thing is, you can make the best game in the world, but if no one sees it, it's the whole tree fell in the forest, who hears it kind of dilemma, right?
Yeah.
So I think that game makers think about the data that you are sending back to AppsFlyer in this case, and how they then connect to the networks, because that alone might be the difference between spending $50K in an advertising campaign and it reaches no one of relevance, or reaching everyone of relevance and suddenly the efficiency went several-fold, right? Yeah. So the product also affects the algorithms, is the point.
Great. Yeah. Great advice there. Yeah, Anna, you're there on the front line. What advice do you have for other people here?
Yeah. Once again, like finding the right partner. Absolutely. Maybe it's a publisher, PR agency, whatever.
Who is your publisher, by the way? Sorry.
Firesquid.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So because it's not a sprint, it's a long-term commitment, and you have to be there for the community. So take all the help you can get. And maybe something that I don't know if it's really like our genre, but for us, different kind of online events have been really successful on driving people to Steam and to wish listing. So kind of being out there for the gamers really kind of converts quite well for us. Maybe it's because it's rather niche, so they really are following what's going on the genre, on that field. But I would wholeheartedly recommend that. Go into online events and Steam events.
Perfect.
And put your game out there as early as possible.
That's great. Really practical advice. And yeah, Adam, what's your take? Obviously, come to AppsFlyer for a conversation.
I mean, obviously. Listen to my podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think for me, the biggest thing is this misconception that is there of everybody's heard these success stories about someone in their bedroom that's developing on Steam or mobile and has released and is hugely successful and they've had millions and millions of installs. That doesn't happen anymore. Like it doesn't. There's too many different apps there now. The discoverability is just such a problem. I think the biggest advice that you can give somebody is to really understand their audience, and like you say, understand where your audience hangs out, and understand what they like about the game and why they play the game and that sort of stuff. And if you can really discover what makes the game interesting to people, then you can discover the types, the personas that you're going after, and then understand where you need to show those ads in order for those personas to see them. Exactly the same as what you're saying is,
Perfect. Well, look, we're almost at the end. I'll give an opportunity for a question. We can take one question from the audience. Was there one? Oh, there is one. There we go. And then we'll take this question, and then we'll break there. Go for it.
So regarding getting wish lists through UA, I think that's really fascinating. You're going to take somebody from your creative to the Steam page, and then you get 0 data back. Has anybody gotten this to work effectively? And second question, I've heard that UA in small quantities can actually be quite cheap. And is there any guidelines about how much to buy to keep the CPI low?
And do you want to take this? Should I? I can give my uninformed, speculative position from talking to my PC industry friends and what I know. Targeted UA can be very cheap in small quantities with a lot of efficiency. It really can. So I can totally imagine a few hundreds, thousands spent, and suddenly you have thousands of wish lists. I believe that it's critical to have that initial wave of wish lists, because Steam will notice all of the fresh installs at the very start of the launch of the game, and that will then trigger the discoverability within the Steam's algorithm. Which means that, yes, it's a bit of a dark box that you're feeding money into, but it's not that much money in return to what you're getting in terms of discoverability. Just think of it as you do want to have a big, juicy launch day, right? And this is an insurance to make sure that even if only a handful of that wish list converts, if it's big enough, that's already a lot. And you're at least going to get a lot of eyeballs, right? A lot of Steam emails, notifications saying the game is now available, right? So I think it's critical, actually. And it shouldn't be that expensive, depending on the network.
Yeah, and also like wish listings and then followers, because followers get even more information. Those are very crucial that you have both. And yeah, like I said, getting the eyeballs, getting someone to talk to, even if it doesn't convert. Like there's been a lot of talk that how wish listings are like more and more like guessing game how it converts. But that's not even kind of the end of it, because now you have all those people and you can start moving forward. Especially if it's early access, you have still plenty of time to make changes, talk to the community and the players. But yeah, that's super important.
Yeah,
Perfect. Thanks. Did you?
It's all been said.
Well, look, thank you very much. Look, we'll break there. This is the end of the big screen gaming track. So that just leaves me to thank Gus from Lessmore, Anna from Resistance Games, and Adam from AppsFlyer. Thank you very much for your insight. Appreciate it. And if you want to ask these folks questions, do look them up on Meet to Match.
And tomorrow I have a talk where I'm going to go even deeper on this topic of data in the game versus the marketing team.
Perfect. So come stick around tomorrow. Great stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
And in fact, I will just wrap up there. So you please do go and grab yourself some a lunch break before we start again elsewhere. But please do let me just thank again our sponsors in this room. We really wouldn't be able to do it without them.